Hey, what's up, everybody? It's BDF44. So, life has a way of forcing you to focus on some things. Don't have a choice. Um, so what's going on in my life? Just now, I just got news that my cousin in Oakland um, was murdered. This cousin of mine is actually, the way to best describe it, is my cousin's big brother. They have different moms, and I'm related to that cousin's mom. So the person that lost their life, unfortunately, is not blood related to me, but that's his home. That's his brother. That's his blood brother. I know his father. You know what I mean? I know that family, not as well as I would like to because they live so far away. But I've spent time with all of them in this life, and I remember uh, Lil Jeff very well, and he was stabbed yesterday. Just got the news right now. So I come here today because I need to discuss what has been on my mind for a couple days now, and it just so happens this circumstance forces me to have this conversation. Just because we have no control, and I'm speaking as a black community, no control over the circumstances that we find ourselves in as a whole, based in these little pockets of communities where crime does take place, and we all who are knowledgeable about the circumstances that we're in, we all appreciate the nature that black on black crime is something that is used as a retort to keep from placing blame where it properly should go in regards to the specifics of police brutality and the overall fight for equality in this country. It's often used as a retort to keep from focusing on those issues. Okay? So I want to make that so clear that even though this has hit home for me today, that does not change. I will not accept black on black crime as a retort to Black Lives Matter, because they're two separate issues that deserve two separate conversations. But I think what's getting lost within our conversations is the fact that this needs a conversation. And maybe this isn't the time to have it until we get to a place where we have more control over where we live, how we live, getting rid of redlining and things of that nature that gives us an opportunity to spread out, live better, know better, and etc. I still think that we don't want to get too far away from trying to better ourselves internally. We are not a complete product. Us, African Americans, our people, we're still evolving. There are things that we can do to help our lives within these communities. And one of the things that we have to get rid of is the culture of being comfortable in conflict with strangers who look just like you. Comfortable in conflict with strangers that look just like you. Also known as black on black crime. I'm not arguing anything other than the fact that if there is some control within ourselves, if there's some kind of control that we can have over what it is that we allow ourselves to partake in, the streets are going to be the streets regardless. There's going to be nastiness going on out there as long as people are after money. And I don't know what caused the murder last night. It could have been random. It could have been a close person. I don't know anything other than this took place. But the specifics of the situation that I'm now dealing with has little to do with the conversation as a whole, because the conversation as a whole is not about one murder. It's about the culture of murder that we have within our communities, and whether or not it's our doing, whether or not it's concocted from circumstances that we created, whether or not it's a deterrent from the conversation that needs to be had in this era, does not mean at all that it's not something that we should need to try to fix, to take a look at, to do whatever we can within our control to try to better our communities so that our citizens and our children can be safe in the communities that are not so favored in funding, in the best of things. And we need help doing so. This is why I look at people who have privilege, and I look at people who are being called out for various reasons, looking at the Jewish community, particularly since they've been highlighted within our fight based on some of the anti-Semitic jargon that has been used as talking points in this conversation. I talk and I say the things like, look, why haven't you used what you have to help those who need help? You know how we've been treated. You too have been treated poorly. Since we've welcomed you into the conversation, or brought you, or dragged you into this conversation with talks of heritage and history, I don't give really much of a damn about that as it pertains to the conversation I want to have with other communities and the Jewish community, because I want to talk about how they can use their influence and their history of being oppressed to fuel and ignite a fire within to help those of us who also need help but don't have the discipline, don't have the power, don't have the buying power, the resources, the respect, the skin color to gain respect. Like, those are things that they have, that they've set in their own spaces and have kept comfortably within their own communities. And I say, where much is given, much is expected. Where there's been a great deal of favor, should come a great deal of service. And that's the kind of conversation I would personally like to have with those who are in positions to help. I won't talk to America, Red America, because I understand that they directly oppose what it is that we're talking about. In general, I'm not speaking for everyone, I never am, but just in general, they oppose us, and most importantly, they don't have Hitler to look back on and say, I can actually relate to the suffering of your people. See, there's no real relation there. If they feel empathy, it's because they care. It's not because they actually have something to dig back in that they could say, yo, yeah, that was horrible. I know what you're going through. Jews, they do. They do. And a lot of times, from my perspective, my ignorant and stably ignorant, if I may say so, I'm nestled in my ignorance as in this is just, it is what it is up to this point. But from where I'm sitting, it looks like they just kind of been sitting back saying, that's their problem. Those savages, that's their problem. Yeah, we went through what we went through, but we dug ourselves out of it, and we're in a good space with the whites, so they respect us, and we're not going to make a fuss, just going to continue to do what we can to stay strong. Like, that selfishness, that bullshit, they need to be called out on. Period. Because they know what we've gone through in their own right. That level of suffering, you can't duplicate that with a sense of empathy. Empathy doesn't give you that experience. They have an experience that they can draw from. A pain that culturally they feel as a togetherness. And maybe that fear that comes with that is conditioned them to stay in their little corner and just do the best they can and not cause no trouble, because they know how big of a tyrant white supremacy is. But nevertheless, they have been much better positioned to not only relate to us than some of the people that we're trying to discuss this with, but also in a better position to help us than we are able to help ourselves. And that is why I say that we need to have conversations about allies and what others can do when they have more than us. Not to say that I'm a victim, but to say that the game has literally been set up so that we continue to live nestled in our ignorance, so to speak, in our little communities where not very little is given to us and very little is taken from us. In those circumstances, with those people, they need help. There's help needed. And I feel like some of the surrounding communities are in positions to help us, but no one more than the Jews. No one more than the Jewish community is in a position to help the black community. With all due respect to everybody around, I don't think anybody's in a better position to both help us and understand us than them. And that's why I speak the way that I speak. So when I speak of black on black crime, yes, we need to do better. But what I also know is that we need to also ask those who can do for us and to help us to freaking do so. because clearly we are in a crisis mode, not only as it pertains to the things that are happening to us, but also because of the culture that has been created from this suffering that allows us the ignorance to do things to ourselves based on a hatred, a culture of hatred, and a culture of self-hatred that has been embedded in us for years and years and years. And we are trying to figure out who we are, and we're trying to figure out how to get out of these traps and these bad communities and these bad circumstances. And we know the game has always been rigged, not only against us, but also to belittle us and continue to reinforce these negative thoughts within our very own minds about our very own selves. We need help. It ain't just on us to fix us. We are the disenfranchised in this country. We are those without a voice. We are those without a language, without a system of our own, without a land of our own. We would need people to help us with that. You understand what I'm saying to you? And we're not looking to the enemy to do that. If we find support within their group, great, cool. Hey, we love all allies. But some allies are needed more so than others just because of what they can do and what they can relate to. I'm calling on my brothers and sisters to get it right, but I know I'm speaking to a wall if I don't get support from others to help them with the things that they just can't do on their own. So we sit up here and we talk about how we're humanitarians, we want to do better for the earth, and this, that, and the third. It's a high time that all of us start thinking about our reputations as it pertains to how we are viewed in treating others, not only by those who are alive to see us right now, but by the history books who will tell the stories of how we lived. Black people, though we need a lot of help, we got to do what we can. That is the reality of it. Help may not come. Are you going to continue this process until there's none of us left? If help doesn't come, are we going to continue to pretend like we're not killing one another? Or like we're supposed to bucket everybody who mentions that we're killing one another? Two things can't exist at one time. We can also both have these issues and have issues of our own that we need to deal with. And there are many people in all communities that will try to pass the buck from changing because they're afraid to change. But change is necessary, and you'll be forced into it if you don't choose it. Help is needed. That's what this took me to. Yes, we need to do some things to change ourselves, but we're in some bad situations. And there are many African Americans that this doesn't fall into. People who don't have those type of lifestyles, people who live in good communities, people who are raised with a certain level of knowledge and culture within their families and money or what have you, where none of this will apply, and that is okay. But please put them aside. We're not talking about them. Don't highlight one side of African American lifestyle, the African American experience, to try to belittle supporting the other half of the African American experience. The whole thing needs help. If you believe Black Lives Matter, don't just support the Black lives that you're comfortable being around. It's the people that you're not comfortable being around who will probably need your support even more. And those people are related to me, related to everybody else that you respect one way or another. I'm learning that we're fighting against a mentality. I've watched footage of an African American woman taking blue paint to a Black Lives Matter mural that's painted on the floor. So footage is going around, and there was a cop there trying to stop her from defacing the Black Lives Matter mural, and he ends up slipping in the paint that she's using and falls straight on his face. It's a very, very, very scary situation for the officer. But to me, that spoke to how the universe is viewing this entire process. Now, maybe I'm just looking at it from a spiritual perspective that many don't believe in, but I honestly believe that the Lord speaks to us and through us through behavior and symbols and things of that nature if you just know what you're looking at. All that told me is that God does not appreciate the notion that this is a color situation. That's what that told me. That a black woman's on the wrong side of this situation. That cop representing a police officer's uniform was trying to stop her from defacing something that, in the eyes of normal people who are supporting him, thinks opposes him. He falls on his face, and that speaks to everything that's going on here, in my opinion. The Lord wants us to stand for one another. He's not for this Blue Lives Matter nonsense. He wants people to love one another, and if he sees a group of people who are not being treated correctly, he's obviously going to want to see the rest of humanity support those people until the situation is resolved. That's what he wants us to do. Work together, find solutions to our issues, and not internalize and personalize everyone's different plight as they bring it along. That's evil behavior. A person sits here and tells you, I have a problem, I need help, and you say, well, I got problems too. Even though I don't need help, I'm not giving you any help until you acknowledge that I too am here. Like that's self-serving. And that's essentially what a lot of us are doing out here, saying that we're supporting one side, but really we're just supporting the idea that we should continue as business as usual and not change. And I see that on their side, and unfortunately I see it on ours too. People wanting to pass the buck, getting completely and utterly livid at other individuals who tell us that we have an issue we need to address. We do. But the conversation doesn't stop with us needing to do it. It starts also with those who are in position to help us along, with those in position to see to it whether or not we have a smooth transition from doing so to where we're headed, and not taking steps backwards, creating more obstacles and more issues for us to continue to try to fight against, on top of the issues that we have that we need to focus on. And the one that I'm noticing that we really need to straighten out is finding balance between how we handle conversations as it pertains to our very own issues and things that we are in control of, and how we can fix those things. We need not retort with, don't talk to me about black on black crime. We need to say black on black crime is an issue that we're going to do something about when it's time. And that time, unfortunately, has come. We should be focused on displaying ourselves in such a way that disarms the enemy from even saying that we're anything like him. And I think the best way to do that is to look at yourself, just as we're asking them to look at themselves and all that they need to change in order to make us feel good about what we're doing. We also need to make some changes so that we can feel good about what's going on, so that we can continue to survive, period. We have a culture of kill. It's in our music. It's in the way that we move through these streets. It's in these various communities, how people interact with one another. They're so quick to pick up a gun, pick up a knife, stab each other up. They'll never want to turn them same guns and them same knives to the real enemy, though. You're too afraid, too docile, too brainwashed to do that. But you'll certainly look at one another and try to take and do the crabs in the barrel thing over and over again, sell each other drugs that are not good for the body, shit that'll poison your system. We do this to one another to come up. People coming up rich and wealthy off the bodies of others. We can address these things while still saying we need to bring down our enemies. We can acknowledge that there's some things that we're not doing perfectly here. We can acknowledge that not all of that is just retorting propaganda against our spirit, but more so something that's an honest conversation that we really need to deal with. Many of us want to pass the buck to keep from having to make those changes. And what I'm telling you is, we need to not do that. You're only fueling the enemy. That's all I'm saying. You're giving him ammunition to use against you, and you're cutting down your own numbers. Lil Jeff was a soldier. We lost a soldier. Another, one of many. For what? Because we didn't want to take a look at ourselves? We only want to blame them for what they do? We don't want to blame ourselves for what we do? How are we any better than them when we ain't looking at ourselves just like they ain't looking at themselves? If somebody's harming you and you harming yourself, we got stuff to talk about. Why we're doing it is one part of it, and how to stop is another part of it. Let's take our steps, man. Let's do what we got to do to get better, to evolve here. Black on black crime is only a talking point because we've allowed it to become one. If we stop letting our children kill our children, stop letting our households get to this point where it's so broken that there's nothing but outside to go to for our kids. And to those, again, those who are in position to help us do so. Clearly we had a disadvantage here. So that's what I gotta say, man. Rest in peace to my little cousin, Lil Jeff. My heart hurts for my family, for my little cousin Christopher, his brother, you know, of whom I'm related to. And Big Jeff, his father. You know, my heart hurts for all of them, man. I'm at a space where I don't want to duck this. And I know the importance of not having certain conversations in the presence of certain people, because I know that there's a lot of ammo being used against us, as I've said a million times. But nevertheless, this conversation must be had. Because we really are killing ourselves. I don't care at what rate. I don't care if it's the numbers, the statistics. That shit don't mean nothing right now in this conversation. One person's too many. This ain't got nothing to do with the fight. This ain't got nothing to do with our supporters or our enemies. This is just us here. We got to reverse the culture that we reinforce in the way that we live, so that more of our children don't continue to die over and over again as the years continue to unfold. We can do this for another 300 years if you like. Or we can start planting the right seeds. Start turning our attention to our real enemies. That's the conversations that need to be had in everyday households. Knowing who your real enemy is. Knowing how to do conflict resolution. Learning about how to handle certain situations socially, so you don't find yourself in situations where it gets that awful. These are conversations we can have. It's not going to hurt our cause to address our issues. There's a place for that. I promise you, it is. My name is BDF44, and I'm out.